This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold. All right, on today's show, I have Alex Goldfayn, and we are going to talk about his new book, 5 Minute Selling, but we're also going to talk about his entrepreneurial journey. And I'm super excited about this conversation because sales is something I love, and I don't always think there's a lot of people that are doing it right, but you come highly recommended from a very good friend, Marissa Callie. And so I'm super glad to have you here, Alex. Welcome.
First of all, that's a lot of pressure on my head, Gabe. Thank you. Thanks to Marissa. I don't know if she's watching or not. Can you see if she's watching right now?
There's a few people watching. I can't tell if it's her yet.
I think she's seen a lot of me today. We've talked a lot today.
Yeah.
So that would be too much Alex for me even. Thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I'm grateful to talk to you, and I'm excited to try to help your listeners and your viewers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always start out the same way to kind of get some context and understand who you are. When did you figure out that you were entrepreneurial, that you were into sales? Like when did you discover that you had this itch?
You know, I've never had a job. So I've been in business my entire life. I started my first business when I was 21, and I was in a graduate school for clinical psychology. I was in a doctoral program for clinical. I went college, pre-med psychology major. Right out of school, I went to grad school. In that first year in clinical psychology, I was going to be a shrink, right? Listen to people's problems all day. It wasn't for me. I mean, like in month one, I knew this was not for me. And it was right at the peak of the internet bubble blowing up. And I started a business. I started a computer training company and started teaching people how to use different computer software. And that company grew, and that's it. And so I've never in my life had a paycheck that came every 2 weeks. And some days I feel like that would be nice. Like in the pandemic, it would be nice to know you're going to get paid every 2 weeks, you know? It's gotten harder to sell in a pandemic for most of us.
Yeah.
But I've never had a job. I've always been an entrepreneur, and I've always been in business.
That's awesome. Did you, that's super interesting because I've been entrepreneurial since I was a young teenager too. And I tried working for other people twice, but it didn't work out because I hate working for other people. I like working with other people, but not for them in that sense. But, and so one of the things that I have incessantly studied kind of as a hobby, which I bring into a lot of what I do, is psychology and, you know, human interaction and thinking and all that. Did you know in college that you were going to do something entrepreneurial, or did you just realize there's no way I'm going to be a shrink? Did you just shift?
It's interesting. In college, because I was a pre-med psychology major, I thought I was going to go to med school. And then, like, I don't know. Look, I'm an immigrant. So I was born in Ukraine, which was the Soviet Union. And, you know, basically my parents came to America so I could become a doctor, they will tell you. That's not true, but, you know, they came to America for a better life. But when I told them I'm not going to med school, they were like, why did we come to America for? You know, and then they wanted me, it was either doctor or lawyer, because that's what immigrants want for their kids.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I didn't know in college that I was going to start a business, but when I got to grad school, I started looking around, and, you know, my friends were getting really interesting jobs or starting, you know, or going into really interesting businesses. I can't say anybody was really starting companies at 21, you know, it's like, it's not so easy to go into entrepreneurship then, but, I don't know, like everywhere I looked was more interesting than what I was doing, listening to people's problems. And so I just started. What I ended up doing was I ended up going, as you said, you were from Chicago. So I went to the metro train stations, and I put up the little signs with the little tabs that you tear off, you know, with the phone number on it. And I remember driving around with my dad, and he would be driving, and I'd run out of the car and put it up on the bulletin board, you know, with some thumbtacks, and off we went. And that's how it started.
That's very cool. You would enjoy listening to my friend Adam Allison's episode, because his dad did something very similar when he got into the computer business, and he ended up building the first NBA website. He's a pretty cool story.
Oh, cool.
But
really cool.
So I think that's pretty interesting, honestly, that it was at that point that you just kind of shifted and started your own thing and didn't question or just jumped into it, or, you know, just took a dive on it. I one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people that immigrate here, if I'm saying that right, from other countries, they come with this really high drive and work ethic, and that's what really pushes them forward and helps them be successful. Did you always have the confidence to just jump into these things and then you learned along the way, or do you think there was a tipping point where you were like something sparked and it made it happen, or do you feel like it was just like an inherent personality trait for you?
I think probably the latter. You know, I didn't spend too much time thinking about it before deciding I was just going to do it. I was going to try it. And when you're young like that, without much, you know, materially, right, financially or materially,
Yeah.
there isn't much to lose, right? So I would think, you know, thinking through my friends who have talked about starting a business for the last 15 years but haven't, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you have more and a family and, you know, and a home, and there's more to lose. But, you know, I moved back to my parents' house after college, right? And then I lived in a one-room studio apartment in Arlington Heights on the railroad tracks, you know, and nobody understood why I lived there. So literally there was nothing to lose. So it was easier when there's nothing to lose, I think.
Good point.
And so he just did it. And not that I thought about, you know, how little there was to lose. I just thought it would be a cool thing to do. So I went to try to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know what else to do, you know? So I didn't spend too much time thinking about it. I just started doing it.
I think that's a great explanation of what an entrepreneur is. I think we're way more decisive. We're ready to jump in. We're ready to try to sell the big deal or, you know, try something. And I started the same way. I had nothing to lose and everything to gain. So I was willing to try everything. But I think keeping some of that, you know, tenacity and that attitude doesn't hurt us, because if we remember how we started, we can remember that we can start again too. And that gives you more power and confidence.
That's a really good point, because when that business failed, and it did, because the internet bubble burst, what we ended up doing, also from putting up little tabs, it ended up evolving over a couple of years into a company that taught. So our clients were custom software makers, mostly in Silicon Valley, who would do like custom databasing, and for their customers, we would learn it, and then we would teach their customers, right? And we would travel to the clients of our clients, right? And teach them. We'd be the training arm, the computer training arm. So that business ended up with 12 people, full-time staff, which is far more staff than I've had ever since that company blew up. I promised myself I would never have people again, full-time. I think I'm finally now, 20 years later, Gabe, arriving at the point where I'm opening myself up to the possibility of having people again. Now I've had many contractors, I have many partners. I have an assistant who works with me, an executive admin. She works half time for me, but she lives in North Carolina. I've not had a full-time employee since that business blew up, and I promised myself it'll never happen again. You know, I was 23 at the time, towards the end of that, when I had the 12 people, and they were in their 50s and 40s, and, you know, spending what little money I had. I didn't have any money. You know, everything the business made went to their paychecks, and they were managing me. I wasn't managing them. They were managing me. I didn't know how to manage anybody. And it was just such a miserable experience. And then also going back to what you said about, you know, you started it once and you can start it again. When the failure hit, it shook my world, you know, because it was the first thing I'd ever failed at. I mean, it's young to really have big failures at that point in your life. You don't have any gigantic failures when you're in your early 20s. And I did, and nobody else I knew did. You know, everybody was still in their first job.
You don't get it.
The whole thing blew up. You know, I remember a week or so before my wedding, I got married at 24. In the week before, my dad and I were moving the furniture out of our offices, you know, because I had an office in one suburb of Chicago, Schaumburg. That was our headquarters. And then I had a training facility in the Loop right next to the train station, you know. Yeah. And we were, you know, hauling furniture out on our backs, loading it up into whatever van we could. I think we rented a U-Haul. And because it was only like a year and a half ago, we moved it all in, you know. So it took me a long time, years really, to recover from that failure. It took, because there was depression and there was anxiety and there was like really like big stuff to deal with and get over as a kid without without ever being equipped to handle any of it, and without really anybody to talk to. Eventually I found, I found that therapy helped a lot, right? But I couldn't go. Nobody could relate to what we go through except us, right? Only entrepreneurs can relate to the risks that we take every day.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, and I mean, it's super interesting because when I was 24, I have to make sure I get the years right, but in my early 20s, I went bankrupt for $1 million and lost a huge company and lost it all. And you're right, it's incredible pain at such a high velocity that it's a very challenging thing to go through. And like you said, nobody gets it. And especially if you're isolated and you're not around other entrepreneurs that go, oh yeah, I've been through that. Here's how you do it, or here's how you navigate it.
Right.
When we're that young, we don't even know there's a network of other people that have already weathered that storm. So,
right.
So I feel for you, and I'm just super, super happy for you, man, that you've come such a long way and now are back on your feet and making a big impact. And I would venture to say, it sounds like you're pretty similar to me. I mean, it's a pretty valuable experience, right? You would, now looking back, I would never trade what I went through. I never want to go through it again, but I would never trade it.
Well, it's shaped my business actively ever since, actively, not passively, not in the background somewhere, but actively. And, so I run a solo consulting practice. Mm-hmm. And each of the last 2 years, I did $3 million in sales solo. That's more than that company with 12 people ever got, with the office spaces and the overhead, right? I remember counting up how much it cost to open the doors every month. And it was so stupid, right? But when you're young, I was reading stories in the Wall Street Journal, and that was my reference point, those companies, right? It was, I think I was like 75 or 80 grand a month, just to open the door that month. It was so stupid. And guess who was the only salesperson? Me. I was the one that had to come up with all that selling.
Yep.
So the point is, right, so the last 2 years has been incredibly successful as a solo consultant. I don't know anybody who runs a bigger practice solo than me. I used to have people that were bigger than me, and I'd go to them and I'd ask them questions, and now I've run out of people to ask questions to. So I have to try to figure it out myself.
Yeah.
But the point I want to make is that, it's been good for a long time, but success isn't linear, and on the Cubs, we have our president of baseball is Theo Epstein, former Red Sox general manager. And that's what he says about players, right? Success isn't linear. And so, while, I went like that early on, and then I went down below where you can see on the screen here, because that's how low it was. And then it came up again, and then it did this for a little while. Multiple times in our lives, my wife and I were out of money. Multiple times. I remember that. Remember when you used to go to the store, when you were checking out at Target or something? There was many years where you would get pitched for a credit card every time you'd come to the cash register. Remember? Would you like to open a Target card or whatever? She said yes every single time, just so that when we if we needed milk or something, and we couldn't pay for it with money, we had a credit card, because that's how low we were. And more than once, when you're an entrepreneur, there's times you run out of money and there isn't anymore. And then you got to grind. And, the only way to make money at that point is to sell something.
Yep.
Right. So you better figure out how to sell something in a hurry.
I landed in Chicago with $100 in my pocket, no bank account, and with a car that broke down the next day. So I went out and sold something the next day.
I got you here and then it quit, huh?
Exactly.
I'm out.
So
that's enough. I got you here.
So obviously, I always tell people there is no business without sales, and I love that you've experienced that on multiple different fronts. Talk to us about kind of how you came to the idea of writing 5-Minute Selling. What's in there, what people should know about and pay attention to, because I still believe today, and I don't know how this baffles me, because I've done 50 million in sales. It baffles me to say this, but people do not understand sales. And entrepreneurs, or maybe they're more entrepreneurs, being honest, don't understand sales. And then everything else struggles, right? Because there's no sales, no business. So what led you to writing the book, and what are some of the things that you've kind of learned over the years? And man, congrats on such amazing success in the consultancy. That's awesome to see where you are today.
Thank you. So the book is my third sales related book. So the first one was this one here that's kind of in the glare. It's called the revenue growth habit. And that was on a sales system for teams, for owners, and because that was my client.
Right.
And then a couple of years ago, the orange one behind me, Selling Boldly, came out. Selling Boldly, you mentioned you like psychology. I mean, my background in psychology. So it's about the mindset of sales growth. It's about how to think to sell more. And it's based on the principles of positive psychology, which is the study of what makes us happy and successful, right? As opposed to the rest of psychology, which we've already talked about. That's the study of depression, anxiety, and what makes us screwed up, right?
Exactly.
And we could say that because we've dealt with it. So then 5-minute selling, I'm constantly, so in my business, I work with clients to apply these things to their company, right? So my work, I run a revenue growth consulting practice, and the work is to grow the companies of my clients. And so every client adds, on average, 10 to 20% annually every year, as long as they do this work. And we attribute it back to this work as we track it. We track the actions and the dollars that they generate. So the thing that led me to this book is that, as you said, most people, I guess, number one, don't understand selling as you said it. I think about it as most people don't like to sell very much. Most people don't enjoy the process of selling very much. And I think we salespeople are really good at serving the customer. You know, a lot of salespeople are reactive. Most salespeople are reactive. I'd say 90% operate reactively. So the phone rings, we answer the phone, we take the order, right? We answer the phone, there's a problem. Customer brings us a problem. They never call when they're happy. They never say, Gabe, great job. That was awesome. Can I pay you more? Right? Customer never calls with that. Customer says, you screwed it up, man. Fix it. You know, where is it? It's late, right? I ordered it. My guys are standing around. You're killing me. Where is it? Customer only calls with problems. So we're really good. We're world class. If you've been doing this for any time at all, you're really good at solving those problems. You have to be. There's no choice, right? But all we do is react. And when you're reactive, if the right inquiries come in, that year you might grow. But if the wrong inquiries come in, you won't grow. And it's completely out of your control. We're a pinball bouncing around, right, to what's incoming, one inquiry to the next. And so I think 5 minutes a day, it's not I think, I know, 5 minutes a day of proactive communication to customers and prospects when nothing is wrong, right? So just as they call us when something's wrong, they only hear from salespeople when something is wrong. You know, I can't get it to you in time. I don't have enough. I'm going to be late, or the price is going up. Sorry, right? Isn't it nice to hear from me? Click. So I think if we can give 5 minutes a day, which is my work, which is what I do for clients, right? So I've seen 10,000 salespeople more do this. We can grow our personal sales 50%, 100%. We can double our sales. I've seen people triple their sales with this. And like in 3-second efforts. So, Gabe, what else do you need that I can help you with, right? What other products of mine are you ordering with others that I can help you with? I want to help you with those. Or, Gabe, where are you at in that proposal, man? I was thinking about you, right? I'd like to help you with that. That's a 3-second effort. I could do a lot of those in 5 minutes, right? A lot. That's 20 in a minute. That's 100 in 5 minutes. That's 100 efforts in 5 minutes. Now, look, they're not all that fast. You know, there's 8 chapters, 8 different kinds of phone calls you can make in this book, right? Different people you can call. So, for example, I'll give you a couple. Call customers you haven't talked to in 3 months or more. Great group to talk to because they're not calling us and we're not calling them, right? Because we're busy answering what's incoming.
Right.
They're silent. Another group is customers who used to buy but stopped. You make a list of them. I have a proactive call planner. So the system, I know this is all a very long answer to what led you to write the book.
No, this is excellent.
But the book is a system. It's a system that you can implement in 5 minutes or less. And so one of the things here, there's 2 planners and 2 trackers. This is the proactive call planner. And so here you can write down 8 different kinds of people to call, right? Here is the second planner. It's a weekly follow-up planner. So there's 3 columns there. Each one is a space to write a name. The first column is customers who are pre-quote or pre-proposal. So you haven't gotten to the proposal yet and you want to move them along towards one. The next column is people who have a quote or a proposal that you can follow up on. And the third column is customers who can buy more that I can follow up with. They're already buying. So the point here is I want people to quickly plan. You can fill out, I don't want you to take 5 hours to fill out these planners or even 50 minutes. I want you to take 5 minutes and write down who to call. I think we don't make proactive calls because we don't know who to call.
Good point.
Let's sit down and think and write it down. And then after you quickly plan, I'd like you to quickly do. We do the work quickly, right? In 5 minutes, because I'm going to leave a voicemail most of the time, I can probably make 10 phone calls and leave messages, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. 10 phone calls a day, right, is 50 a week and 200 a month and 2,400 in a year. That's a lot of calls. How can business not grow if you make that many phone calls? So that's where 5 minute selling comes from. 5 minutes is enough. And the people who don't want to do it, they'll be like, you can't do anything in 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes can't possibly be enough. So 5 minutes is enough.
I love it, man. That's super helpful because I think it does address, like you said, the fact that people don't like to sell, and they probably don't like to sell because they don't have a system or process. It's overwhelming. They don't have simple tools. And also they may feel like parts of outreach and prospecting and like the relationship building there are uncomfortable. All of us, if we choose to, can be uncomfortable for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's not so uncomfortable anymore.
And the time to do, let's say if we're just focusing on the phone calls, the time to do it is in the morning, first thing. I think Mark Twain said, if you're going to eat a frog, you might as well do it first thing in the morning because it's not going to taste any better later in the day. You know? And he said, if you're going to eat 2 frogs, eat the bigger one first. Get that out of the way. So I think the point of that is if you wait till 1 or 2 o'clock, you're going to be so busy reacting and putting out fires that you're never going to do this work. Just as for many people, if you want to work out, you got to do it before you sit down at your desk because then you're not going to find the time afterwards, right? You're going to get busy. The day's going to get away from you. So first thing in the morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever your time is, you make your calls. You do your proactive work. And then it's done and you can have a really good day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I always think about physics when you talk about like doing things first thing, because I've observed myself over the years and the Newton's laws that I always butcher them a little bit, but it's like, bodies in motion stay in motion, bodies at rest stay at rest.
Yeah. And
the hardest thing is to change state. And so
totally,
if you teach yourself to do the challenging stuff in the beginning, then it's easier. And kind of reminds me of about a month ago, I was out in Montana with my son and we went hiking and we jumped in this glacier stream that was like probably 35 degrees at best. And I haven't been in that cold of water since I was a kid. But it's like so cold, it burns and stings like the second you step into it.
Takes your breath away, right?
Exactly. And so
to breathe.
I went in, dunked myself a couple times, and I was, warm for the rest of the day then, which is another topic for another day. But when I got home, jumping in my, 75-degree pool when it was a cool day, it felt like a hot tub. And I bring that up because if you can just get over yourself and do it for 5 minutes, it'll become effortless, and then we'll get the payoff that we want, right? Our company will grow, our sales will grow, we'll really achieve the goals. But if you continue to tell yourself the lie that it's too hard or it's too difficult or I can't, right, then you're stuck forever, and then you will more frequently visit the broke states of your life, right? And nobody needs that.
It really is. You just talked about mindset, and it's all about, we can't outsell our mindset, can we? Right. Yeah. So if you believe you can't, and if you believe that it's going to be awful, then that's exactly how it's going to be. And if you believe that, even I can do 5 minutes, and after all, I am helping people in tremendous ways, and I'm going to go do my best and help these people for 5 minutes, right? Or if you get somebody on the phone, you'll have a nice conversation, even if it's longer than 5 minutes, if you want, and then you're going to move on. And so, I think Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. It's a fantastic quote, right? I only really do 2 or 3, and that's one of them, So either way, you got to make the calls. If you're in the selling profession, right? Either way, you got to make the calls. So if you think this is going to be the worst experience of your life, right? Then it will be. Or you could say, I'll do my best, help this person as much as I can, and move on.
Yep.
And so you know, and I would argue that one of those choices is the correct choice and the other choice is the incorrect choice. So we might as well make the right choice.
Yeah. And I really love how you continued to frame this in very similar language to what I use, which is I'm serving, not selling. Like, and I do sell at the end of that, but if I show up and serve, money pours in effortlessly. If I think about it at a transactional or even at like a combative level of trying to get something, then it just it doesn't work. It's hard. It doesn't last. And so that's the other mindset shift, because I believe in my amateur psychology research that everybody deep down does want to help somebody else. Yeah. And so if you tap into that part of yourself,
that's what we're here for.
Sales is easy, like, you know, or it's simple.
That's a great point. We think about these things a lot of like, I call that just helping, right? I don't even call it selling. I just say, if you want to sell more, help some more people some more. That's the work. Those are the two things. We want to help our existing people more, our current customers. Let's help them more. Let's sell them some more. And we want to find more like them to help. Yeah. Aren't they better off with you than with the competition after all, right? Can't you help them more than the other guy? Of course you can.
Right.
And if given the opportunity, if a customer has somebody show up who honestly wants to help them, they will never say to you, no, I'd rather you not make my life easier today. You know, exactly. People will grab onto you. We think their phones are ringing off the hook, you know, and the truth is that nobody is calling them without a problem. You know, nobody's calling them just to say, Gabe, how are you, man? I was thinking about you. All right. How's your family? How are the kids? What are they doing this summer, right? Did it go okay? What about school, right? Are they going to go into the school? What are you guys doing for school? And so we have so much in common right now. First of all, there are no cold calls, right? Because we have this incredibly intense pandemic experience in common. And I could talk to you. We don't know each other. I could talk to you for a half an hour about pandemic life, you know, and ask you questions because I'm curious about how it's going, where you are. And then I would say, it's great to catch up with you. Now, listen, what are you working on that I can help you with? Right? What do you have going on? What projects do you have coming up? Right? What products do you need in my category that I can help you with if you sell products? So it's a gentle turn then to business, right? After connecting on a human level. And when you do that for somebody, you're going to be the only one that does it. And they're going to thank you with their money, literally, right? It's so rare for them that they're going to hold on to you and they won't let go.
Yeah. And like you, kind of what you point out there is, if we just listen and connect, then all the truth is uncovered and it's super easy to move to the next step. And I really like that line you said. So and if I got it right, you said, you know, what are you working on right now that I can help you with?
Yeah.
I mean,
what do you have going on? I have different versions. And by the way, all this language is in the book, right? That's scripted out in the book, but you said it correctly, you know, or you can say something simple like, what do you need quoted, right? What are you having trouble getting that I can quote for you? Some of my clients like to say, listen, man, what's on your wish list, right? One of my salespeople clients did that. He said, what's on your wish list? And he was telling the story at a workshop. He stood up and it was a follow-up workshop. So we did the launch and then they were doing it for 3 months. And then I come back and we visit how it's going and people tell their success stories. Yeah. Again, psychology. We marinate people in the wins, you know? Yeah. And the guy stands up and he goes, I asked my customer, what's on her wish list? So I call it a reverse did you know question. So a did you know is, did you know I can help you with this or that? We name the product. A reverse did you know is let's ask the customer to tell us what they need, right? So what else do you need that I can help you with? What are you working on these days that I can help you with? So after he said, what's on your wish list? He says, she started rattling off things and she said so many things, I couldn't keep up with them. I couldn't write them all down. So he said, by the time she got to like 6 or 7 things, he said to her, why don't you take a minute, really think through it and send them to me in an email. So I thought that was great. And he goes, the email came like 15 minutes later. There were 24 things on it, 24 products of his. And each product is a repeat purchase. They buy it forever, right? As soon as you buy it once, they need to keep going back to buy it. And I said, how many of you sold? He said, only 18. Only 18 of the 24. I said, well, get to work, man. You got 6 more to go.
Wow. That's awesome.
If you ask people what they need help with, they will actually tell you. It's amazing. They'll actually tell you. And then you can help them with it. And again, they say thank you with money. So that's pretty awesome. I
love that question. I always ask people, if you could wave a magic wand right now in your business, what would you get? What would you want?
Yeah, that's great.
Like just showing, just asking how I can serve and help,
I was talking to a guy last week. I was sitting outside on the porch, on the phone, thankfully, not on a Zoom call where everybody's a little box, right? Aren't you getting zoomed out a little bit? Everybody's a box. I like actually being able to kind of sit back and relax a little bit on the phone. And we talked for an hour, and this will be a big prospect for me, a big client if they sign up. And I've been talking to these folks for a couple of years. So it's one of those that's going to take some extended effort. And he goes to me, Alex, if you could see the smile on my face when you were doing your techniques and putting me to an answer and, asking me closing questions and, sort of, making me name a date for when we're going to talk next. I said, I did all that. I said, I was just having a chat. I was having a nice conversation. I didn't even know I did that. Like I told him, I'm just trying to help, I know I can. He knows I can. I even said that, I can. I'm just trying to help. I didn't even know I did all that. So to your point about we're just serving the client, man. I'm just trying to help. I was having a conversation.
I love it. So when's the book come out?
So the book is out next week. So we're talking Thursday if you're watching a recording. The book is out Monday. And it's published by Wiley, so you could buy it on Amazon and really anywhere they sell books.
Very cool. How long did it take to write? I'm curious because you've now written 4 books and you're a couple ahead of me, so I'm curious.
So it's my 5th, but it's only 4 have been business books. I write quickly. I think about it for a long time, and then when it's time to write, it's usually pretty close to the deadline. so I don't have a choice but to write fast. So I learned how to write fast. I wrote this mostly in the month of January.
Nice.
So it took about a month. And the problem with that was that I had 18 sessions in front of audiences in January. So I'd wake up in the morning at 4 or 5 and I'd write. And then I'd get ready for my workshop or my speech or whatever I was doing. Then you have all the travel, which was actually helpful because I got to write in airports and on airplanes.
That's super helpful.
and then after the session, so in the morning I do it with coffee. And then after the session, if it was late enough, I'd get a drink. And I would do. So I was doing 2 a days, right, in sports parlance. So it took a month. And at the time that I wrote it, we weren't in pandemic yet. It was January, and so we went into the editing and all that. And then towards the end of editing in the middle of May, I ended up writing in like an opening note on how this applies in the pandemic. And in fact, because none of it is about going to try to meet with people, it's all about proactive selling during your regular day.
Right.
Almost all of it is remote. It's all selling from a distance. And so the truth is that this stuff works better now since we can only sell from a distance than it ever did when salespeople could go and be face to face with somebody. So it's more effective, right? It's more powerful now because you can't see your customer anymore, right? We're buying or they're buying from a different location and we're selling from a different location than normal, right? And there's no more face-to-face. Salespeople who are experienced like to call it belly to belly, which I've never understood that sort of phrase.
I've never closed that close.
I've never been belly to belly with anybody I've sold to ever, not once. With my wife, but that's a different thing. I've never been belly to belly in a sales situation, but that's how they like to call it.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool, man. And so 5 Minute Selling is the book. You can get it anywhere books are sold, obviously on Amazon and everywhere else.
And the planners and the trackers that I told you about, by Sunday, you can go to my website. You can go to my website and there'll be a free download. So you can just get those.
Very cool.
Even if you don't buy the book, you can just get those and use them. It's not up yet, but by Sunday, I'm hopeful they'll have them up.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for sharing all this, Alex. It's been a pleasure, and huge thanks to Marissa too. She knows my kind of people. So we had a wonderful conversation. I really appreciate you sharing this with the audience because I love the real deep, psychological approach to how you approach things because it makes things simple in the end if people will take action on your super valuable advice. So what's the best way they can connect with you?
So I'll answer your question and then I want to thank you back. So goldfayn.com is my website. Goldfayn is my last name, GOLDFAYN.com. And, I'm on LinkedIn. and you could see a lot of my latest and newest work there. And so the thanks back to you is I'm doing over 50 podcasts for this book, conversations like this, all real tight together within 3-4 weeks. This has been one of my favorite ones.
Oh, thank you.
So.
I love talking to servant leaders who are entrepreneurs, and that's clearly what you are based on what you've shared today. So I super appreciate it, man, and love to have you back in another few months. Give us an update on the book, and maybe share some more strategies and things like that, because I think it's been super valuable. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm grateful.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.